Hello and welcome to The Game Changers. I'm Sue Anstiss and this is the podcast where you'll hear the stories of trailblazing women in sport who have knocked down the barriers to challenge the status quo for women and girls everywhere. I kick off as always with a massive thank you to Barclays for continuing to sponsor The Game Changers and helping us to share the stories of these remarkable women. Few brands have done more for women's sport. Barclays are title sponsor of the Women's Super League and they're also backing the FA in the fantastic work it does to ensure that every schoolgirl across the country has a chance to play football by 2024. A fitting final episode for what's been an incredible series of guests. Today I'm talking to one of the best players in the world, Lucy Bronze. Lucy was UEFA Women's Player of the Year in 2019 and in 2020 was named FIFA Women's Best Player of the Year. Having played for a number of British clubs, including Everton, Liverpool and Man City, along with a time in North Carolina, Lucy spent 3 years in France playing for Olympique Lyonnais, Europe's most successful team. She returned to Man City this year and is also vice-captain for the Lionesses. I began our conversation by asking Lucy how football had played a part in her life growing up.
I grew up in quite a rural part of the northeast of England, pretty much Scotland. I just started playing football because my big brother played football like a lot of other little boys in the country. My mum and dad actually were never into football. My dad still doesn't really that into football, although they like to come and watch me play. They wouldn't really watch football on a regular basis. I had a good upbringing, just kicking around in fields and at school, playing football with my friends. The only girl for miles and miles that played football in those ends. But I enjoyed myself, and that was kind of how I made my friends, was through sport and especially through football.
So when did you first meet other girls that were playing football? Were you able to play football with?
Well, I moved slightly south at the age of about 10, 11. And funny enough, I moved onto a brand new estate and 6 houses down from me. Our gardens kind of looked onto each other, but it was Lucy Staniforth, who also plays for England now as well. That was literally the first ever girl that I ever met who also played football, happened to be pretty good as well. And we joined the same school at the same time because we moved into this brand new estate in a new town where neither of us were from. And we used to kick around playing football together every single day. Together we used to have to travel about 45 an hour and a half, give or take, to train in Sunderland or in Blythe, because that was literally the closest girls team to where we lived.
And lots of people might not know that you were also, I believe, a county standard tennis player and you're a national finalist in pentathlon and cross country. So why did you choose football as your path when perhaps you might have played other sports too? Yeah,
I think my mum was very keen for the tennis. She wanted the little girl with the frilly white skirt on and the nice white socks, and I think she pictured me playing in Wimbledon or something. So I used to play with my brother a lot. We had tennis lessons, but I never really liked playing on my own. I did play mixed doubles with my brother a lot. I had another partner for girls doubles, but I just didn't like it. And obviously I'm quite rough and tough as well. I liked playing football, just being with the boys that I was friends with at school. I wasn't the most sociable child, so sport was a way of making friends. So playing team sport was definitely better for me. I enjoyed athletics and cross country, but it was just because I was good at them. But I think I was only good at them because I was good at football and running around playing football.
You're very fit, yeah. And you mentioned that kind of long travel across to play at Sunderland. So did you play within the Centre of Excellence there?
When I was 11, 12, that was when you couldn't play with boys anymore. My mum had a mad panic to find a girls' team because she didn't know much about football, and then she didn't realise that was even a rule, although it made her very, very angry. And that's an understatement. So she just Googled it. It was Newcastle and Sunderland came up. I went for trials at both. Sunderland was the better one, kind of historically has been in women's football. Joined that. It was a bit too much for me when I was 12 years old. It was an hour and a half each way.
Wow.
So I did it for a year and then found a girls team that was a little bit closer, that was at a good level, but it wasn't an academy team. And then, I played there for a few years. And then people were talking about, you could play for England, which again, I didn't know was a thing when I was younger, but they were like, you have to play for academy. So back to Sunderland I went when I was maybe about 14, 15. and just stayed there until getting into England team, getting into the seniors at the full senior team at Sunderland as well. Yeah, but Sunderland was kind of where it started.
And what was your average training week like in those days?
When I was 12, we used to go every Monday was one training session, and then games or tournament the weekend. Then when I was at Blythe, it was Tuesday and a Saturday and a game on a Sunday or something like that. Like I said, I was so lucky that I had Lucy Staniforth, because we used to just go to the fields were literally just down the road from us. So we used to hop the fence, run down this cow field to the football field, and we used to just lever the ball as hard as possible at each other across the pitch, try and hit the crossbar. We used to go doing running together, just doing everything possible to just keep fit and wanting to challenge each other. But yeah, as training went, it was kind of limited. Obviously, travel was a big factor for playing in the girls' team for many of the players. So you kind of had a lot of training days, which would just be kicking about in your garden or with your friends at school.
It seems, I guess, so unfair, really. You think about a young man with your talent, how they would have been treated at that time. And obviously, you said your mum got very angry about it too. But did you feel it was very unfair at the time?
I think when you're that age, you don't think about those things. People always ask me that, and they say, "Oh, how did it feel being the only girl in the boys' team?" Because no one else made a point of it in my team. I never realised it was a thing.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's only when someone points it out that then it becomes an issue. But when I was younger, no one cared because I was good. First of all, I was good. So as long as you're good, no one cares. If you whatever, you're good. So you can play and we'll win. So it wasn't really a factor. But I think for me, it was, like I said, again, I struggled to make friends when I was younger. It's funny because Demi Stokes was at Sunderland when I first joined when I was 12. And she was like, "I don't think you said a word. The whole year you was there, you didn't say a word." She's like, "I don't think we ever spoke," which is funny because we're like best friends now. But I was literally the shyest child ever in new environments. I didn't know how to go up and speak to people. I liked being around the boys, my brother, being rough and tough. And then I was put in a situation with an all-girls team, and that was the thing that felt weird to me. Whereas everyone was like, "Oh, how weird was it playing with the boys?" I was like, no, it was weird playing with the girls. Like, that was a thing. Like, oh, you have to play on a girls' team. And I was like, what? Why? Girls play football? Like, is it a big deal? And then I think that was when it went in my head that it was an issue or that was something. It made me maybe a little bit more anxious.
Yeah, and that's interesting, isn't it? And you sadly had a few injuries in your career growing up. So can you tell us a little bit about that? And you had some issues with your knees as well in terms of injuries.
It's crazy because people are like, "Oh, you had so many knee injuries," but there was just one incident that happened that then just was a knock-on effect for everything else that I've now had to deal with in my career. And now I'm one of them players that's labelled as a knee injured player in your career. But it was when I think I must have been 17. I literally just banged my knee on the floor and I had a problem. A lot of stuff happened because of it. It got infected and I had surgery. And I was in the England squad, and England were like, "Oh, we're not going to pick you for the next thing that's in the summer," even though this was maybe March. And in the summer it was like the Euro finals and World Cups, but youth level stuff. But still, it's like the pinnacle of your career at that point because you've not had a career. So they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to pick you." And I was like, what? Like, this is 3 months away. I'm sat in hospital bed, not because of any of my wrongdoing, just unfortunate run of events. So then me being me, I went to this same field that I used to go to with Lucy Staniforth every single day with my dog. I used to go running around, kicking footballs every single day to get fit and fit. Obviously, I got fit. I went to these things, but as a knock-on effect, it basically turned out that my other knee had been affected because I hadn't been doing proper rehab because no one had been looking after me. Which again, like you said, if I was a boy in that position, going in an operation and coming out of it, I probably would have had that support, which a girl at 17 years old, I had zero, like no physio, no medical attention. I'd been in hospital for a week, come out and it was like, "We're not going to pick you. You're on your own." So, but I've got that mentality that no one can kind of tell me no. Worked hard, got in that place, but completely messed up my other knee, which then I've had to manage my entire career because I worked so hard to get back. But being 17, 18, obviously did it in the wrong way. And it's crazy that something as simple as that has kind of set the course of four knee surgeries, being out for 2.5 years because of because of these surgeries, which could have easily been fixed had I had that support initially.
Yeah. My eldest daughter actually had an ACL injury at the start of her rugby career. It was actually the day before she was about to start the Wasps Centre of Excellence. And I know how much it affected her mental health for that period afterwards. So how did you kind of get over that as a young woman? I'm sure it must have been a challenging time.
For me, it was really challenging because I felt like I didn't have that support from the teams or the clubs or the coaches that were around me, but I was very fortunate to have a family that supported me very well. Not financially, particularly, not that we were a very rich family or anything, but yeah, they were always there for me on a mental kind of stay, always supported me. My mum's done that through my entire career, regardless of the fact that she wanted me to play tennis. But it was a very trying time. And for me, when it was probably quite similar, 18, 19, you're kicking off into senior football, into the senior side of sport. At that age, a lot of my friends were starting to get picked for the England team, like the senior England team. They were playing for the first team. They were playing in the FA Cup finals and all this. And I was sat at home in bed in crutches. But I always try to look at it in the fact that those 2 years I spent injured, I constantly felt like I was 2 years behind everyone. And I've had that mindset my entire career, even though that was 9 years ago. Everything I'm doing, I'm like, I'm 2 years behind, trying to catch these people up. And actually what I ended up doing was overtaking them because I was focused so hard and thinking that I was always behind. So I always just try to look at it at that point of view, that it was something bad that happened, but I turned it into such a big motivation to be where I am now. Fantastic. And people say, oh, maybe if you didn't have such bad knee injuries, like imagine what you could have done. And then sometimes I think like that. And then sometimes I think I might have done worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I might not have had that mental capacity.
That drive. You do hear that a lot, don't you? Kelly Smith, others have said the same thing, almost that adversity that then drives you on for your fitness. So I guess moving on to the really positive things and your progress for England, what are your memories of your first cap for England? Can you take yourself back there?
I actually remember my first cap so well because it was such a big game, because Rachel Yankee was making the record appearances. So she was starting that game. So everyone was around Rachel Yankee. It was a preparation. It was the last camp before the Euros. I'd just been called in off a whim because a bunch of people had been injured. And we were playing Japan, who had quite recently, just won the World Cup. So I didn't really have any expectations. And Hope Powell was the manager as well, which is funny because she's known for being just quite hard on players and quite a stickler, which I quite liked. But I remember the first cap, she pulled me up and she stood next to me, and she's not known for being super nice and cuddly. And she turned to me and was like, you just go out and enjoy yourself. And I was like, oh, Hope Powell just said that to me. Like, it was just a huge relief off me. I came in at right back. I actually scored, but it got disallowed for offside because somebody else was offside, which I think probably would have been the winning goal as well, which was disappointing, but it was a friendly and I'd just made my first cap. So I was just kind of excited by the whole experience of it. But yeah, it was very memorable because there were so many things going on, and definitely a game that I remember very well, even though it was, I think maybe only played about 25 minutes.
And you moved on then. You went off to University of North Carolina. So why did you make that decision at the time to move across to the States?
Google. My mum had Googled when I was 12 the best places for girls to play football. And when we were looking at Sunderland, it also came up about America being this amazing place for women's soccer. And she looked into it and she took me there on a holiday with my brother and a friend. Went to like a soccer camp. Anson Dorrance, who's like this superstar in women's soccer in America, spotted me at the age of 12 and said, you come back when you're 17, 18 and
wow.
you're here, which is funny because in the younger age groups at England, no one really thought much of me. And then there was this guy who thought, I was 12 and he was telling me, you're going to be a star. So then when I was 16, I just finished my GCSEs, and England had a programme where the players went to Loughborough and you study. I didn't go because I wasn't good enough. Well, I was deemed not to be good enough by England. They'd pick, I don't know, like 5 to 10 players from each age group or whatever. And they rang my mum up and said, no, Lucy's not coming. She's not good enough. at that point, all my friends are going to Loughborough to train and to be full-time athletes. And I'm thinking I'm going to drop behind. So that was where it was like, right, we're going to go to America. And if you can't have it in England, you'll do it somewhere else. So off I went to America, had a great time there, but then improved there, got better there. England then rang me up again and said, if you're going to be in America, then we're just not going to pick you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I kind of had this stuck between a rock and a hard place situation. People always ask me why didn't I stay in America? Didn't I like it? I loved it. I played in the best team. The players that I played with, I think about 8 of them have won at least one World Cup. Yeah, had amazing, was training every day, always doing the fitness, just loved every minute of it. I feel like I maybe made the wrong decision because at 17 you think your world's going to end, that England aren't going to pick you, whereas actually I should have had the attitude, well, if I'm good enough, they'll come crawling back. But I wasn't that strong for obvious reasons because I'd never really had that belief from them. So I came back and not funny enough, but that's my knee injury started off the back of returning to England. That was when I first got injured. My whole span of knee injuries happened. And I started university in Leeds instead and just finished my degree there. But that was when I was balancing my life. I was going to university, being very badly injured, working. Obviously, I didn't have money as they have to work like everybody else does. And then trying to train kind of not professionally, semi-professionally. It was when the league just changed into the league that it is today. That shift of women's football kind of happened in a shift of my life as well.
Yeah.
So I always feel like I've kind of been on this women's football journey. When people talk about it, like my life is kind of that journey.
That was one of my questions later. I was like, you've been in parallel of the journey of the professional women's game, haven't you? So that's interesting. I didn't realise that was why you came back. I was going to ask you, I guess, the changing time then. And I guess moving ahead, by the way, I've got so much time for your mother. She sounds fantastic. I'd like to meet her sometime. I love her passion for helping her kids through. But in 2017, you made the move to Lyon in France. So why that move?
They were just the best team in the world in my eyes. At City, we'd played against them, and I mean, I enjoyed my time at City the first time. It was brilliant. We won trophies, and then we played against Lyon, and I literally just went, wow, this team is amazing. We got beat in the first leg. The second leg, we went to Lyon, played in their stadium with these fans, and again, I was just blown away. Thought these are amazing. I didn't realise, but at the time, like one of the big shots at Lyon, I didn't know who he was, but he walked up to me at the end of the game down the tunnel and kind of was like, I think you're amazing. Like, you're such a good player. We absolutely love you. And I just took it as a compliment and thought, oh, like, thanks. I didn't really see myself on this same level as these Lyon players. Turns out a couple of weeks later, Lyon were knocking on the door saying, right, come and play for us. And it was an opportunity that I just couldn't turn down at the time. To play in the best team in the world, have this opportunity to win Champions Leagues and play with all the best players in the world. I inspired, like, I've wanted to be like my entire career, you know, Wendy Renards and people like that. And now they want to play with me. So yeah, it was a no-brainer.
And how did you cope with the language and the culture? And I guess that a massive change to go and live in France rather than
Spain. It's funny because I can speak French now, but there's a girl at a City and she's French, and she said, oh, did you know French when you went to Lyon? Because like you speak pretty good now. And I said, I didn't know a word. I could count like 1, 2, 3. I remember having a little book because we had the Euros just before I was signing for Lyon, and I had a little book through the Euros where I was going to try and teach myself a little bit of French. I'd just about learned left and right. I think my dad's Portuguese and he kind of brought us up speaking Portuguese a lot to us. So I think learning new languages came a little bit easier to me than maybe a standard English person who puts on a silly accent and speaks English to people in foreign countries. But yeah, adapting to a different culture, different language, maybe it was a lot easier having already, been brought up in 2 different cultures with Portuguese and English.
Yeah.
So settling in was easy enough. Learning the language was difficult, but it was, I think I just looked at it that we all were kind of going through it as foreigners, and it was part and parcel of it. And I think with football as well, sometimes you don't need to know a language. You can just talk to each other without talking to each other. But yeah, even just learning a language was such an amazing life skill to get, regardless of all the experiences I had in football. To say that I can speak French now is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And is the attitude to women's football very different in France, do you think, to here? When you got there, did it feel different?
As a country and as like a federation in France, I think their thinking is behind ours in England. However, Lyon specifically, their thinking is ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
Which is quite an unusual balance. So like in the league, sometimes I would be a bit like, oh, the English league, the other teams have got a lot more to offer in terms of what they're putting into their teams. But are anyone really on this level that Lyon are at, where this president, like the guy that owns the football club, is just as invested, if not more invested in this women's team, like emotionally, than he is in the men's team. Maybe not money-wise. Well, definitely not money-wise. No one is. But he would come to the games. He'd be in the changing room afterwards. He would know everything that was going on. Like, this is the guy that runs the club, and he would know who's on games against, who's playing well, who's not playing well. Like, you know everything about the women's team, more than he would know probably about the men's team. And I think he just saw the women's team as it's been his project for the past kind of decade. And credit to him, because he's got his just deserves out of it. He's won countless Champions League titles and won all sorts with his team because he just invested some of his time, some of his money, and he got it all back. You know, that's what everyone keeps trying to say, but this guy is living and breathing that.
He's done it, yeah, absolutely. And you clearly can see that playing for Lyon helped your game develop. Do you think that players today can get the same opportunities with teams within the FAWSL as you did going off to play in Europe?
I think to a certain extent, I think the way that the league in England's improving, a lot of more foreign players, a lot of top players are coming to play in the league. So you're going to get that experience that I had of playing with these top players, which obviously you don't play with the same players at England if you know it's a German person or a Dutch person or what have you. So you do have those experiences, but also I think there's a level of comfortability like in England, like the English league. You see it in the Premier League as well. You know, I think I watched a game the other day and they said something about one of the Wolves players who's Portuguese, and they were like, imagine if he was English, imagine how we would be talking about him and saying, oh, he would have the world at his feet. And I think there's that in women's football as well. It's, you're comfortable in your own country, your own language, your own settings. Everything's a little bit easier. So maybe you're not pushing as hard and you're getting all the praise because you're English and you're homegrown. Whereas actually, if you go to another country, they don't care that you're English. Like, you've got to prove yourself even more so. And you're putting yourself in a place that's a little bit uncomfortable. And, you know, this country doesn't know who you are. Or they might know little bits from tournaments, but that's all they know. So you have to prove yourself all over again.
Yeah.
So it gives that a little bit level of motivation, and it's just a little bit different and pushing yourself out of a comfort zone.
Jess Fishlock said that actually about being one of the few overseas players. You just got to prove yourself over and above to make sure that you're selected. Very interesting. In 2019, you became the first English footballer and the first defender to win the UEFA Women's Player of the Year award, and then you were named Best FIFA Women's Player in 2020. So how did it feel to win those awards? And that award, I guess, after former winners like Megan Rapinoe and Marta in the past?
Yeah, I think it's crazy because like you mentioned, being a defender, it's certainly not something that you have on your agenda in your career, because I feel like it's not something that's as possible. Everyone loves a goal scorer.
Yeah.
Everyone loves the silky skills and those people who set up the goals, score the goals, they're the kind of headlines all the time. So I think it's never really been on my list of things that I want to achieve, but to have achieved them, pretty special. And to kind of hit that criteria of being the first English person or first defender, and kind of paving a way for other people to think anyone's capable of winning this award. It's not just specifically aimed at these people. Winning the FIFA award, especially when I look at the people who've previously won it, that's the one where I'm like, whoa, like Marta. Marta was the name that, you know, everyone knew growing up. I know I talk about Kelly Smith and Rachel Yankee in England, but Marta's like, it's Marta. She's like the Messi or the Ronaldo, the equivalent, just known through the entire world. She just had everything in her heyday. Like, she was the best. So to be kind of on that list of names, yeah, with people of that kind of caliber is something that I think I prefer. Not that I don't like winning the award, like the award's fantastic, but just to be in the kind of same list of these people is the best feeling, I think.
And you're clearly a super talented player physically, but how important do you think your mindset has been to your success across your career?
I think as I've grown older, I think I've realised that my mindset's probably been my biggest asset.
Right.
My physical capabilities have always carried me to the top. But when I think about actually how I got them to be so good is because of my mental capabilities, wanting to always win at a race or be the strongest or be the fastest or be the fittest. It was never about, oh, I'm going to get this in the fitness test. Like I'd do a fitness test just to beat the person next to me. And I wouldn't even know who they were. It didn't even matter the person that I was beating. I just enjoy winning. I enjoy being competitive. I think that's maybe something that I got from having a big brother who never let me win. He always let me play with him. I'll say this, he'll always let me play with him, but he would never let me win. If I won, I won. But if he won, he wouldn't stop rubbing it in my face. So I think I just got that competitive mindset from a young age, and it's definitely something that's carried me in my career, wanting to be the best at everything that I do, wanting to get the top, wanting to win games. I never set out to win, these individual trophies, or I just want to win. Just that feeling is better than actually the material thing of holding this trophy. Like, I actually don't like holding these trophies and celebrating. The feeling that I get inside is the best feeling, which I think that's that mental feeling. That's definitely been my biggest asset.
Are you competitive off the pitch as well?
Yeah, I think as I've got older, it's calmed down a little bit because people point fun of it. Kind of point fun of it a lot. I think the girls try and wind me up about, they'd be like, oh, Lucy, I bet I can do this better than you. And they can see like I'm itching like to bite back and be like, no, I'll do it better than you. I can do it faster. But I think as I've got older and mature, I've noticed that people try to push my buttons a little bit, but also I'm like, I need to let other people be the best, or other people, I need to be able to lift people up as well as myself.
Yeah.
Which has come with being a bit more mature, being a leader, wanting to being captain of teams and stuff, is to bring everyone with you and not just you on your own. But yeah, I'm definitely competitive off the pitch. I want to be the first to do something, or to do it the best, or to do it the right way. And I get quite impatient, but I've learned to balance it in my head.
Excellent. And you mentioned that you were quite shy growing up in terms of talking and so. Is it got easier to speak in public and to kind of take the stage in the way that you've needed to in recent years?
I think it's just had to. I think it's part and parcel with being a footballer these days. Like the game's growing. If you become a better player, then more people want to speak to you. It's something that I've definitely had to work on. It's never come easy to me. Going to France was definitely a big push in the uncomfortable zone. Try to do interviews in French when I don't even like doing them in English. But yeah, it kind of comes with the role, and getting older as well. Anyway, it kind of comes with it. But when I was younger, I hated speaking to new people. I hated speaking about myself. Even though I was competitive, I wanted to be good. I didn't like speaking about being good.
Yeah.
I didn't like saying I am good, but I like thinking it. But I would never like to say it. I despised it. But then as you get older, you learn that you have to share experiences to help other people. It's not about, I'm not doing it to help myself and to become this person. It's because I'm talking to share my experiences, because that'll help another little Lucy Bronze who maybe does feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, and on that, there are some lovely videos of you on Instagram surprising fans during lockdown. So how much does it mean to you to be able to inspire that next generation of young girls and boys that are coming through to play?
Yeah, I love that. I think my mum says it all the time that I'm better at speaking to children than I am to adults. They're the things that I enjoy doing. I like talking to the kids. I can get on a level with them, and it's exciting to see that they want to be like Lucy Bronze, or they're like, oh, I've got your shirt, and I'm just like, this is so crazy. It's not as crazy now, but my mum will still text me and she'll send me all sorts and be like, this little girl's got your shirt, and I'm like, I know, mum, like I play for England now, like it's that's what happens. But I think my family are still a little bit in amazement about it, because obviously it's the family name and things. But I absolutely love it. I love talking to all the fans, especially the young ones, and like I said, the boys and the girls, because I love talking to a little boy about if he watched my game just as much as a little girl. I think both are just as important as each other.
You've won Champions Leagues and cup finals and played for your country. And you actually achieved so much of what you set out to achieve as a young girl. So what drives you today, and what's your ultimate goal in terms of playing?
I think I'm still driven by the fact that I've not won everything. always my biggest focus is always to be a winner with England. It's something that I've yet to achieve on a national team, because obviously we have Team GB now as well, which is exciting. But yeah, my goal even as a little girl was, I didn't really know what the Champions League was when I was younger, but you always know what the World Cup is. I think that's the one that you always hear about. So yeah, I've always wanted to win a World Cup, a Euros, Olympics, or all three would equally be just as good. So I think that's still my driving factor until the day that my lungs give up on me or my knees give in on me. I'm going to be striving to win something with the national team, whether I'm the starting player or I'm playing on the bench or whatever. Like I just need to be part of that team that has this bit of success that's never been done before.
Well, if you could win all three, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, wouldn't it just?
No pressure. And what thoughts do you have for your future? So after your playing career, do you think about that at all now?
I think it's a question that I get asked kind of each year, and my answer changes each year. I went to university. I got my degree in sports science. That used to be the thing that I wanted to do. That was my passion. Because of a lot of knee injuries, I had that passion to kind of have something in that area. And then I went through a phase where I thought, do you know what? I'm so involved in football that when I finish, I don't want anything to do with it. So I'm going to buy a bar in Spain and go to Barcelona and retire and just have a nice life where it's just nice, carefree life.
3 shirts up on the wall or something.
Yeah, just watch football every night. And yeah, and then I've changed, kind of becoming more of a leader, say at England especially. I sit there and think there's so much that needs to be changed still. And now I'm in this position where I've actually got a voice where people want to listen to me. I'm going to be selling myself short and other people short if I don't stand up for these people and help. So now I'm kind of thinking I actually want to be in some sort of leadership role where I can make a difference, whether that's FIFA, UEFA, the FA, or club level, whatever it is. I'm in a privileged position to have a voice, so I might as well use it. And then more recently, I thought, maybe I might be good at coaching. I used to think I'd be bad at coaching because I'd get so frustrated with people not wanting to be the best. So my mind kind of pings about a lot, but I'm set on doing something that's going to make a difference and help other people.
Excellent. And we've obviously seen the growth of athlete activists in recent years and the huge impact of players like Megan Rapinoe and others. And you were part of Raheem Sterling's Time for Change campaign last summer too. So how important is it for you to use your platform for kind of social change?
Yeah, I think really important. I think that's kind of part and parcel of becoming a bigger and better player in these things is that, like I said, your voice is heard by people. And we're in a position where a lot of young people especially are listening to us. And they're the ones that are going to make the difference in the future, ultimately. We can sit there and talk about Parliament and these businesses. And yeah, I want to make a change to them, of course. But some people are stuck in the ways. We've got so much youth now for the future who can make these big changes. And if they're maybe listening to Lucy Bronze telling them to treat everyone equally and give people fair opportunities, then that'll be ingrained in them from a young age. And hopefully then they can go on and make a difference as well. But yeah, it's important. And I think so many sports people have been through all these different adversities and they share experiences with their teammates. That's maybe why they feel like in a position to make a change and help other people, because they see it firsthand.
We've obviously got an incredible few years ahead, which we've alluded to in terms of Tokyo and then World Cup and Euros too. So what impact do you think it could have if England did win? What impact do you think it could have for women's sport?
Yeah, I think it'd be huge. I think 2015 when we played the World Cup in Canada, that was our first sort of, obviously we weren't successful in the fact that we didn't win the tournament, but we had certain successes in that. And that completely changed the game. And again, that was probably one of the moments of my career where it was parallel to women's football as well. As I had a good tournament and the tournament was good and both kind of blew up. I saw the change that made in England and just think if we could just have a little bit more of that success and do even more, how much more could we make a difference? I remember coming back from 2015 because I was in Canada and the time difference, so we didn't really know what we were coming back to. I remember my agent sent me like an advert that Vauxhall had done because they were a sponsor at the time. And it was a little boy playing football in the garden and he had a shirt on that said bronze on the back. And the advert said something like 2015, the year where every little boy and girl is kicking around calling themselves Lucy Bronze or something along those lines. And I was just like, that's so crazy. Like when you was younger, you used to sit there and be like, oh, I'm David Beckham. And now people are saying, actually, they're doing that with women's players now. Like, that's the kind of change that we want. And we didn't even win the tournament, and something like that happened. So I just think, imagine if we can do that at a home Euros and next year in an Olympics, and these things where majors are already involved now. So if we were successful now, it'd just be crazy. It'd be everything that we've been working towards.
What a privilege to talk to Lucy. It's clear to see why she's such an inspiration to so many. If you've enjoyed this podcast, there are 57 other trailblazers to listen to from this and previous series. World, Olympic and Paralympic champions, including women such as Jess Ennis-Hill, Sarah Story, Kate Richardson-Walsh, Denise Lewis, Lauren Steadman, Chrissy Wellington and Tanni Gray-Thompson. Thanks once again to Barclays for their ongoing support of the Game Changers, and to Sam Walker, our executive producer, and Rory Askery, who does a great job on sound production. Head over to fearlesswomen.co.uk for news of the Women's Sport Collective, a free network for any women working in sport. This is also where you can find out more about all the guests from this and previous series. And you can listen from the website, or you'll find the Game Changers on all the usual podcast platforms. Come and say hello on social media, where you'll find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at The Game Changers or at Sue Anstiss. I hope you've enjoyed this series as much as I've enjoyed making it, and I look forward to bringing you more trailblazing guests in the next series. The Game Changers. Fearless Women in Sport.